guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to read a very entertaining email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy, he is 40 years old, he is an accountant by trade, and he shares his story about 3 years ago when he became a free man after kicking his wife to the curb for cheating. You're going to see that the way he discovered all this is when it was tax time and he was doing their taxes and all, he discovered some discrepancies in her numbers and all that, and that led him down the path to obviously getting all the evidence he needed, kicking her to the curb. Yeah, newsflash, don't lie to your accountant. And you're also going to see, guys, how he earlier had discovered there were a lot of red flags, but he couldn't quite get them because she covered her tracks so well. Well, eventually, he catches her. And I've been going to go over here, guys, for many reasons. One, entertainment. Two, of course, don't lie to your accountant about numbers. That's just the dumbest thing possible. But always trust your gut. If something doesn't seem right, you got to do some digging. And if you can't find anything, keep digging. And last but not least, then hire a PI. And oh, by the way, gentlemen, you're going to see at the end of this story, karma does come for her, as it always does. Now, you guys, this is a long story, so I'm going to be splitting this up into two parts. I got to do it. So I'll do this part now, then 2 hours later, I'll do part two, and you'll definitely enjoy the conclusion of the story. But before I get into it, if you haven't done already, come check me out on X, formerly Twitter. Really trying to grow it over there. The numbers are rising every day. And for all you guys that have come over, I appreciate it, and you all know we're having a good time over there. All right. So he says here, hello, SSM. I've been an avid viewer of your channel for a few years now, and I finally decided to bury the skeletons of my past. I'm sending you my story in hopes that you can find something useful to share with your community. I'll also add some of the lessons and realizations I've learned over the last few years of rebuilding and self-reflection. You can call me Greg, I'm 40, and I want to tell you about how the federal government helped me discover my ex-wife was cheating on me. My marriage ended 3 years ago I almost lost my mind before finally discovering something that led me to the truth. If not for being the catalyst that destroyed my life, I would call it brilliant. In part, I'm sending this to reassure some guys out there that life goes on after betrayal and you will survive. If you work at it, you might even thrive. It's okay to be alone. That silence that you're afraid of isn't loneliness, it's a lack of purpose. Yes, exactly, guys. You can get through it. It's going to be hard if you're betrayed and hurt and heartbroken and all that, but you will get through it. But you can't just sit around moping and watching fucking rom-coms. You got to get out there. You got to get to the gym. You got to hang out around positive people, you know? And in time, you will get better. And what he said there about silence, not being loneliness, is lack of purpose. All guys got to have a purpose. Something that drives you to succeed in something, whatever that may be. Otherwise, guys make their girlfriend their purpose or their wife. That's a terrible idea. So he says here, a little background is in order here, but I'll keep it brief. I'm a CPA by trade, and I'm everyone's best friend at tax time. My ex-wife, I'll call Shelly, is 39 and worked in an office on a regular 9 to 5. We married at 32 years old after dating for 3 years and 1 year in engagement. She was 31 at the time. So, okay, she's 39 now and you're 40. So back when she was cheating on you and before you got divorced, she was like 36. We divorced at 37 after 5 years of marriage. 9 years in the total relationship. Moved in after dating for 2 years. Smack! Way too soon. And you know it. But what's done is done. We maintained separate finances and held a joint account for household items, but we filed married. Tax stuff, but it worked out better for our situation. That's enough background. Well, thank God you kept your finances separate, but you were obviously smart enough to know to do so. And now, of course, you filed jointly. That made the most sense in your situation. Our marriage was mostly good. Well, not so good, amigo. Sure, we had our bad days, but nothing that we didn't work through. If I think about it, the only real fight we ever had was about 4 months of moving in together. He says, gentlemen, I have no doubt that all of you have had this conversation at one time or another if you ever lived with a woman. The toilet seat, up or down. Yep. She wanted to know why it was so hard for me to just put the seat down when I'm finished. I asked her if her elbows were broken because I had to lift that damn seat every time I went. Stupid, I know, but it was the principle. We worked it out. Not explosive, but that was the worst fight or rather disagreement we had in our 9-year relationship. If a disagreement about the fucking toilet seat was the worst fight you ever had, that's pretty darn good. But yes, they lose their damn minds about the freaking toilet seat. I've had living girlfriends, I understand, and many other guys out there watching this. There's one guy out there right now who I guarantee watching this who just had that fight probably last night with his wife or girlfriend. She's bitching about you having the toilet seat up. Well, we can equally bitch about her putting the fucking thing down. And round you go. As far as her personally, the only thing about her I can honestly say I didn't like at all was how she ordered food when dining out. It was like she was negotiating for world peace. One good thing came from that, though. Now that I see the crap that waiters and waitresses must put it up with, I tip generously. Well, that should have been a red flag when you started dating her. If she was a pain in the ass in restaurants, I'd never will let that slide. It's fucking food, for Christ's sake, and you don't treat people like subhumans when you got to eat. I worked in restaurants, I get it. It was about 4 or 5 months before I walked out in August of that year, if I remember correctly, when I first noticed things fell off. I'm not certain how long it was before I really noticed, but she had changed up her work wardrobe. Aha! Dressing differently, huh? The new clothes were nice, but they were also the type of clothing designed to grab attention. And I was wondering whose attention she was after. Red flag number 1. Trust your gut. Those clothes weren't for my viewing pleasure, so there's no misunderstandings. It wasn't like in one day she went out and replaced everything. It was subtle. What I'm at a time over a fairly short period. It was like boiling frog syndrome. By the time I noticed, the water was already boiling. When I mentioned it under the guise of a compliment, she just said she was feeling dull and wanted to improve her outlook on life. That has nothing to do with your fucking outfit, wife. It all sounded reasonable, so I pushed it into the back of my mind. I hadn't seen any other behaviors that made me look twice. That's what loving, trusting husbands do, right? Nowadays, guys, well, Frank, let me rephrase that. All the time, guys, you trust but verify. That's what you gotta do. And if there are no red flags, you gotta keep looking around occasionally to see if there are red flags, because some are that darn good at hiding things. I always hear in these stories about how women are constantly gossiping with their coworkers or about their coworkers. But in my case, she never talked about work outside of work. Ever. She never talked about coworkers, and as far as I knew at the time, she never spent any time with any of them outside of work. I asked her about her work friends one time, and she said she didn't really have any friends at work, only coworkers. We'll see. Bullshit. I have never, as an adult past the age of like 23, have ever had a girlfriend that didn't babble on about her fucking coworkers in her day. How many times you husbands or boyfriends that have a girlfriend, you get home from a long day, you want to chill. You want silence. And in she comes, the foot is barely in the fucking door, and she's sounding off about her coworkers or something that happened in the office. It's like, Jesus Christ. This is what I have to listen to get laid tonight? But you're hearing nothing? That's a red flag. It was like she was completely disinterested in her job and the people she worked with when it was time to go home. If I asked a question, she would just brush it off and say she didn't want to talk about work and when she wasn't getting paid. I actually appreciated that sentiment, and it was a consistent behavior through our relationship, so not a red flag. Well, that was a red flag because they always babble on about work. Don't get me wrong, a good boyfriend or husband will listen, but when you hear the same shit all the time, after a while it's like, for God's sakes, either do something about what's bothering you or shut up. I'm tired of hearing about it. Another thing I always see in these stories is their behavior when it comes to their phones. Shady behavior. Suddenly changing their behavior, texting at crazy hours, etc. Well, nothing like that happened, and I checked her phone multiple times and even bought software to restore deleted texts. I verified it with our phone bill. No new numbers, no crazy numbers or texts to unknown people. Nothing. She didn't even have a pass lock on it. She left it lying around the apartment and would often misplace it. Well, instantly a lot of guys are thinking, well, she's having an affair, which obviously we're going to find out. Then she has another phone. That's the only thing that makes sense. I can't even count how many times she asked me to call her phone so she can find it. She never freaked out when I picked up her phone. Hell, there was one of those stupid games that we played together on her phone to level her up or something. Her phone was never even a blip on the radar of concern. If there was a second phone, I never found it or heard about it. It's very likely if she's having an affair, there had to have been a second phone somewhere. Who knows where she stored the damn thing, but And again, man, she was very good at covering her tracks. So you have to just, I mean, you're divorced, it's over with. But guys, there's other red flags. The phone's always the biggest red flag. And if that isn't a red flag, there's got to be another one somewhere. Some other form of communication. Another thing that's always prominent in these stories is how distant and emotionally disconnected the people are. I swear there wasn't any of that at all. Her behavior towards me never really changed. There was no distance or disconnect. We still enjoyed our time together, and she always put in effort, but not too much. No love bombing or guilt loving. She was the same as she always was. She wasn't spending extra time with friends or going out to find herself or whatever bullshit is. She didn't have some crazy harpy best friend trying to destroy our relationship. When she wasn't at work, she was with me. I can't think of a single excuse she ever gave me that didn't make perfect sense, and the times I verified, it was exactly as she said. Then she obviously was a master at covering her tracks. End of story. Because you obviously know we're going to find out the details of the shit she was doing. Well, after a lot of reflection on our entire relationship, I'd say my biggest shortcoming was that I'm a bit OCD. And when I get focused on something, it's complete. Well, that's a blessing and a curse, because I'm the same way, actually. Yeah, guess what, guys? Revelation here, I have OCD. And that's a blessing because it gives me tunnel vision to focus on what's important to me. The problem is, well, there are certain traits and qualities that, aren't exactly the best. That can drive other people fucking crazy. But you got it too. Honestly, as an accountant, that's good because you'll be laser focused on getting things right. You could be standing beside me reading the Gettysburg Address for 77 years, and I wouldn't hear a single word. It's a wonderful skill to have for work, but in relationships, it comes off looking like I'm ignoring someone, or worse, disregarding them. Yep, been there, dude. It's a problem that we talked about early on, and I put in a lot of work to overcome it as much as I can. You can't change who you are, but you can adapt to the situation. Well, obviously, this is who you are before she said I do. So if there's any bitching and complaining about that to justify her actions, she knew what she was getting into. One of the things I started doing religiously was after we talked about something, I made notes in my phone as a reminder of the conversation and what the conclusion was. It worked. I never forgot or misremembered the important things that we talked about, and she appreciated the effort. Okay, you are who you are, but you're making attempts to try to, given the situation, make it work. It could be anything. Her mentioning something she liked or asking me to pick something up after work. It was my way to go portable memory. I also got her to understand that she needs to get my attention, meaning I'm looking in her eyes before she asks a question or starts a conversation. Because if she does not, more than likely, I won't hear her. Both of those things worked wonders for our relationship. Well, good, you were a good communicator, and you were explaining to her at least how you thought, how to communicate with you and all that. Good. Yes, that is an issue for me I've had in the past where you got to tell me and look at me straight in the eye and tell me what you want to talk about, or say this is important. Otherwise, I need to tell you about her dad real fast since he was there at the end. Her dad is a good man, but we were never close. At first, I thought it was because he didn't like me or thought I wasn't good enough for his daughter. I had no idea. That went on for years until during a family gathering. We found ourselves alone in the garage, and I asked him, "Have I done something to make you angry?" He smirked and said, "If you made me angry, you would know." Sounds like my dad. He was always like that, direct and blunt. He kind of reminded me of Clint Eastwood if Clint was 6'1", about 195, and a former Army Ranger. I'm not a small guy, but I wouldn't want to make that man angry. Well, I asked him, "You've known me for years, you haven't been disrespectful, but I asked him, "You know me for years, you haven't been disrespectful, but you always seem to keep yourself at arm's length. Is there something about me you don't like?" Probably for the first time since I've known him, he gave me a real answer with no flowery words. He said, and I'll remember this for the rest of my life, "I like you. You treated my daughter the way I think she deserves, and I'm thankful. You're a good man, and you prove it every day, and I respect that. You need to understand that we aren't friends, and we're never going to be friends. It's nothing personal, but circumstantial. You see, there may be a day that will come when I need to off you for hurting my daughter, and I don't want the death of a friend on my conscience." Shit. That was all he said before he left me speechless in the garage. That's how our entire relationship was. He never put on acts like polishing a firearm or sharpening a knife while talking to me. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that was impressive and intimidating. Okay, well, on the one hand, I get it. On the other hand, he sounds like kind of a dick. My dad was a military officer. He fought in a war. He did things I'm not going to mention. In World War II, I'm from a second family, and anyhow. But my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, he didn't treat him like that. My dad was a mentor to him because my brother-in-law also became a military officer and became a doctor, and my dad was a mentor to him. So this guy seemed like too much of a hard ass. And guess what? We're going to learn how his daughter is, so, It was about 3 weeks after I noticed her wardrobe change when she mentioned that she was put on a new team at work and would be expected to occasionally work late to meet deadlines. Aha, here we go. All of a sudden staying out after work. She told me what the team would be working on and how it might be a good move for her career for future promotions. It all sounded reasonable at the time, and I was happy that she was being given an opportunity. I was proud of her. Well, the first couple weeks were okay. She only had to work late one day each week. It was on a different day, but the time she got home was similar. I know because, like everything else that goes into my portable memory, I documented the days she worked late along with what time she got home. I wasn't paranoid at the time. Well, sounds like it to me. It was just documenting in case it was important later. I also made notes about what I cooked for dinner those nights. I gotten so used to taking notes and everything, it was basically second nature, muscle memory. Yeah, I can see the OCD, but then again, you're methodical with details and everything, and yeah, I'm sure you're great as an accountant for your clients, getting everything. It was after that when the days increased each week, and by the second month, she had her first work day on a Saturday afternoon. I'm not stupid. What started out as something that looked like a great career opportunity for my wife turned into double doubt and mistrust. It wasn't because of her behavior or anything obvious. She was literally the same as she always was. She never looked away or broke eye contact. I had no reason on the surface to suspect anything, but my gut was yelling at me louder and louder with each passing week. Yes, trust your gut. Look, I've been on YouTube 5+ years, guys. 3 channels, 3,500 videos. And one thing that we've all learned along the way is something doesn't seem right. Trust your gut. Your gut is your superpower. At the height of her work projects, she was coming home late 4 days a week. Yeah, bullshit. Where's her fucking raise? Where's her big amount increase in pay and benefits for coming home late 4 days a week and occasionally Saturdays? No. That went on until the end of the year. Again, I need to be clear about something. There was no pattern to her late days. It wasn't the same days every week. From the outside, it looked like what she said it was. But that didn't stop me from feeling like something was off. I checked her phone more often. No changes. When she started working late more often, I went through a few months of casually driving by her office and could see her working at her desk. Just like she said she was. It was driving me crazy, and I don't mean to come off like sounding like a hippie, but her energy was off. No, you don't sound like a hippie, but you can just sense something's different. I couldn't explain it then, and I can't explain it now, but there was something about her that changed. I knew it as well as I know my own name, but there was simply no smoking gun that led me to the truth. Either I was unraveling and paranoid for no reason, or my instincts were seeing something my brain couldn't or didn't want to admit. Well, it sounds to me that you were on a quest, but I think your brain and emotions could handle it. Just, she was very good at what she was doing. It was in January when I got my first break. It didn't make sense at the time, but after knowing everything, it makes perfect sense, and if not for me catching the one thing she never considered, I'd probably still be a fool married to her. I said before that I'm a CPA, and at tax time, I have more friends than Donald Trump. They all want their taxes done, and shock Pikachu face, they want me to do it for free. Of course they do. Giving some advice to your friends and family for free, no problem. Doing a full tax return for them, no. They can pay you. I don't have a problem with that since it's what I do and they're friends and family. It doesn't take too much extra time for me, and they always pay me back in some way. My dad always said that in addition to your normal friend group, you need to have a lawyer, a cop, and a private eye on your speed dial. He also said that he wanted a woman who could cook, who could walk in public together without embarrassing him, a woman who was a freak in the sheets, but a lady in public, and a woman who liked to do the same hobbies he did. But the most important thing is to never let these women meet each other. In other words, good luck trying to have all that in one girl. I'm not sure how much of my dad's advice I can take. My mom didn't find that joke very funny, and dear old dad spent a week sleeping on the couch until she pummeled him into submission with silence. If not for being so funny, I would have felt bad for the old man, but he put his shoes on and now he gets to walk in them. Well, it was when my wife and I were doing taxes that I got my first clue. It was nothing new. I always did our and our family's taxes. If I couldn't use my skills to improve the lives of those I care about a little bit, what would I say about my own character? It was while working on our taxes that I noticed that her total year at the end was short around $3,000. Aha, here we go. Remember all that overtime she's been doing? And on Saturdays? And she's supposed to get paid for that? He's like, where's the fucking money? That is not a misplaced decimal. I knew it was short because I tracked her overtime schedule down to the overtime hours she worked and came up with about 141 hours of overtime that was not reflected in her check. Guarantee if she worked 141 hours of overtime, she'd be wanting her extra money. Where is it? Aha. I'm a big enough person to admit when I'm out of my depth. For months, I've been watching, checking, and suspecting without any evidence, and now I had proof that something was definitely wrong. I still had no idea what it could be, but for some reason, she worked late for no extra pay. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. I was going to ask her about it, but in the past, if there was something that would affect both of us, and our salaries are in that list, we talked about it. There was something going on. My gut knew it, and now Uncle Sam verified it, but I still didn't know what it was. Never in a million years did I ever imagine being in a position where I felt the need to hire a private investigator, but I did, and he opened my eyes to a level of deviousness and duplicity that I never imagined. Oh, yes, he does, and he was worth every penny. And gentlemen, this is where I'm going to cut off part 1. I know, but don't worry, in 2 hours I'll be back, and then you're going to find out the whole details of what he discovers through the help of the PI, and why having a PI is worth the money, and how this guy handles things, and the karma that comes your way. So it's definitely a good one, guys, so I'll see you in 2 hours, and don't miss it.